Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Steve. I wanted to talk some more about voting for Biden. I've been having a lot of discussions with people online. I had one discussion with the Swoletariat, which is posted on his channel, and I believe it's in the links under my challenge too. I'll probably repost it after a few days on my channel. I just wanted to kind of, let it do its thing over there first. This is an important issue. The goal here isn't just to do blood sports and argue with people. The goal is to figure out what's the right thing to do. If I'm wrong, I would want somebody to show me. But this is a very, very important issue, and it does feel like a lot of people fundamentally don't understand politics. I would like somebody, honestly, to explain to me how you can consider yourself a leftist and not vote against somebody who literally wants to declare leftist activists terrorists. Like, how are you leftist? He is radicalizing the entire right-wing base to be okay with shooting us on the street by glorifying people like Rittenhouse and the Proud Boys. How does that help the left if every time we try to do direct action, we have right-wing thugs beating us up and shooting us, and then getting black-bagged by feds and shit? How can the left win if we can't do direct action on the streets and we can't get our policies by voting? Because, again, hello, he's trying to rig the election every way he possibly can. He's anti-democracy. In the reality we live in, we only have a certain set of choices. I don't like the choices. I want to change the system, but you can't change a system by wishing it. The choices are greater evil, lesser evil, choosing not to choose. Trump's clearly the greater evil. Even if Trump and Biden were identical on everything policy-wise, which they're not, Biden's policy platform is actually one of the most, if not the most, progressive platforms ever, which is not saying much at all, obviously. And how much of it is he going to actually fight for? Not a whole lot. But even if they were equal on everything, rhetoric matters. And Trump's rhetoric inflames division in this country and causes people's death. It makes it a lot harder to actually do direct action. And again, they're not equal. Biden wants to spend $2 trillion on a climate change plan. He wants to do 2 years of free public college for everybody that makes under $125,000 a year. That's pretty damn good. It's not what we wanted, but it's helpful to a lot of people. That increases, like, you know how much help that would be to so many people? So it seems to me that the only way you can disagree as a leftist with voting for Biden is you have to either disagree that he's the lesser evil, which is ludicrous. I would love to see that defended in any kind of analytical fashion. And you don't get to do that by just pointing out how he's bad. Because you have to show that Trump's actually better or not as bad. Like, these two things are in comparison to each other. That's the choice. So pointing out a bad thing on one side doesn't mean that it's not still the best option. It's not still the lesser evil. Like, almost everything people point out that's bad about Biden, Trump is worse on the same thing, which makes him the lesser evil still. So you have to either disagree that Biden's the lesser evil, or you have to disagree that there's no other choices. So let's talk about that real quick. Why do I say the only other choice is choosing not to choose? Well, obviously, not voting doesn't do anything. It's not challenging any part of the system. It's not going to change anything. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say obviously. There are leftists who just won't vote because they feel like that's endorsing the system or something. It doesn't endorse the system. The system is what it is. The person who gets the most votes according to, like, the rules wins. whether you vote for it or not. The system is there. It doesn't need your endorsement. But if you don't vote, that makes it easier for the establishment to continue winning. Half the country already doesn't vote, and they're good with it. Democrats are more likely to push voter turnout because that usually helps them. But Democrats aren't trying to get 100% voting either. They're not supporting mandatory elections or, yes, not voting is not in any way a challenge to the system. And the other option, of course, is third parties in a two-party system, which is not choosing. I'm not just trying to be offensive when I say that's LARPing. It's a wonderful fantasy that I can choose a politician who represents all my values. But that's not the reality we live in. So that's what makes it LARPing. It's live action role playing about a beautiful fantasy that doesn't actually exist. So let's break it down. Specifically, the argument is if you don't have enough support for your side to win a primary election from one of the two parties, how could you possibly get enough support to win in a third party? Because only about 7-8% of the population votes in either party's primary. So it's a lot easier to win that primary election than it is a general as a third party. And there's a lot of laws supporting the two parties. For instance, you need to win a majority of the Electoral College. Over 50% of it. So if there's three parties, because somehow the third party did really well, it's not enough to win 33% or whatever and have more than the other two parties. You have to win 50%. Now what happens if you don't? The House of Representatives decides who won. You think they're going to pick the third party? Not unless the third party already controls the House of Representatives, which it doesn't. There isn't. I mean, is there any Congress people from... I mean, I think there's a couple independents, but there's not much third-party presence in the House of Representatives. So it's just systemically a two-party system, which sucks, and I don't support that. I would love to have a ranked choice voting system, a parliamentary system, these other systems that allow better representation of everybody so you can actually vote for somebody who supports you. But that's not the system we have. One of two people will be president in 2021, and it will be either Trump, who wants us all declared terrorists and put in camps in Guantanamo. I mean, if you look at his policies and his rhetoric, I don't think that's a stretch. And he opposes democracy every way he possibly can. A bipartisan Senate committee confirmed that Russia interfered in our election. We saw him on TV ask Russia and China to interfere in our election. And he's directly sabotaging the USPS so that votes won't get counted in time or they'll come in late. And after all that, they canceled election security briefings to Congress because they want the election to be rigged. So he will be president again, or Biden will be, who doesn't do those things. Third parties aren't going to win. And now, if you disagree with me on these things, that's fine. Let's talk about it. But what drives me crazy is people who say I'm not a leftist because of this opinion. Which, fine, you can call me whatever, but if you're going to, by calling me not a leftist, you're also, just keep in mind, you're also saying Cornel West isn't a leftist. You're also saying Bernie Sanders isn't a leftist. You're saying Nathan Robinson isn't a leftist, who has some of the best written defenses of socialism I've ever seen in my fucking life. You're saying Emerican Johnson isn't a leftist, which he's been very clear that he agrees with voting for Biden in swing states, if not in non-swing states. Vosh, Chomsky, hello, the greatest leftist intellectual of our fucking age, says to vote for Biden. I'm sorry, if you're calling Angela Davis, she's a great one. She's about as radical as they come. As a leftist, a socialist. And if you're going to say all these people aren't leftists, are you sure it's not you? Like, if there's that saying that if you think everyone else is crazy, maybe it's you that's crazy. You know, if you think everyone else isn't a leftist and you're the only true leftist, maybe you're the one who's not a leftist. A thought. One of two people is going to win, and one of them wants to end leftism, and you aren't trying to beat them. How are you the leftist again? You know, one of the things the left loves to do is accuse the other side of being shills for CIA or FBI, which, because, hello, that happened. Like, that's been proven to have happened and is very likely continuing to happen. And the other thing that happens is actual Nazis who pretend to be leftists for various purposes. Well, if you are a Nazi, a fascist, FBI, or CIA, and you infiltrate the left, what kind of rhetoric would you be pushing from the left? You would be pushing rhetoric that actually hurts the left. Things like letting the fascist who wants to end leftism win. Obviously. Like, I'm not saying everyone who disagrees with voting for Biden is paid by the CIA. I'm just saying the consequences of your rhetoric line up with people who are paid by the CIA. And I don't care about things I can't prove. I don't care what your actual intentions are. What matters is the consequences. And the consequences are you're letting a fascist win who is the greatest enemy of the left right now. It's not okay. So, Emerican Johnson and I were talking on Twitter, disagreeing, and like I said, he does agree with voting for Biden if you're in a swing state. I think that's important. But he, like some other leftists, will say that you should vote third party if your state's not a swing state. I would love somebody to, and I've emailed him. Hopefully, we'll have a discussion on this. I'd love to talk to him. He's a cool guy, great channel. Watch a lot of his videos. How does voting for a third party ever help in any way whatsoever? Can anyone show me evidence that the Democratic Party has ever went, oh look, the Green Party won 1% of the population. Let's adopt some of their policies so we can try to win that 1%. No, it doesn't happen. They go, oh, those are the irrelevant kooks who would never vote for us anyway. And they write it off. They don't even care what the Green Party platform is. Who's won policy changes on the platform? It's always been people who primaried with the Democrats and actually won support. Because that is a direct threat to their power when they get primaried. Because primaries are where this system is most vulnerable to change. If you want to change a system, you support people who are primarying. And if you win, you can actually get into government and make changes and have power to affect change. If you don't win, you have significant leverage with the person who does win to affect their platform. Both in 2016 and in 2020, Bernie Sanders forced a lot of progressive changes to the official Democratic platform. How many policy changes did the Green Party ever force? None. They're going to get 1% like they did last time, possibly less. Even if they got 5 times as much, it's still irrelevant. Like, they always talk, well, if every leftist who's not in a swing state voted Green Party, maybe they'd get 5%, and then they get federal funding. Okay. Why do we want them to get federal funding? So they can split the Democrats' vote and help the fascists win? Them getting federal funding, if you can't win a primary, doesn't help. And they're not going to. That would take a 500% increase over last election cycle. It's not going to happen. The only poll I've seen showed that the Green Party voters from 2016 are voting for Biden by 2-to-1 metrics. From the data, little data, there's not a whole lot of data. From the little data I've seen, the third parties are going to do even worse this cycle than last cycle. It's irrelevant. If you have an argument for why it isn't, I'm open to it. I'd love to hear it. I just don't think it is. Whereas a vote for Biden in a non-swing state has a lot higher chance of actually doing something. Because A, there's a whole lot of undecideds that you don't know which way they're going to swing right up until the day of the election. There's going to be 5% or more undecideds. And if they all break one way, which happens, it happened in 2016. That's why so many people thought Hillary was going to win, and then she didn't, because the undecideds broke for Trump. But it happens the other way too. And, you know, a lot of it depends on like last minute news that comes out that you have no way of predicting. So the point is, if you think your state's not a swing state, and then all the undecided swing one way or the other, your vote could matter. The other thing is, even if your vote doesn't technically matter because the margins weren't that close, it's going to help because, and this is super important. I should probably do a whole video on this, but there's lots of people talking about it. I would say it's near a certainty that Trump is going to contest the election results and try and stay in office. There's no reason for him not to. There's no reason for the GOP not to. Trump has a lot of investigations pending. If he leaves the presidency, where he's successfully argued from his position of power that he's immune because he controls the Justice Department, and the Barr agrees. If he leaves that, he's probably going to die in prison, and I don't think he wants that. It makes more sense to him to force the issue, and this is not that implausible. Well, first off, as is very likely, Trump will look like he's winning on election night, because the mail-in votes are going to come in later and be counted later, and mail-in votes overwhelmingly go to Biden. Polls show this. So it's very likely Trump will look like he's winning on election day, and when everything's counted, Biden will win. And of course, after all of Trump's rhetoric about how the election's getting rigged, while he's rigging it, conservatives are going to cry bloody murder, and it will give Trump the ability to deny the election results and say there needs to be an investigation and stay in power while there's an investigation. And this is the kind of thing where a democracy gets transferred into a one-party system, because the investigation never ends. If something like that happens, by the way, we all need to just head to Washington, D.C. immediately, because the point will be to try to just manage it as best they can until people forget about it, because rage doesn't last long. He will be successful if there isn't sufficient outrage and direct action immediately. And here's the thing. This is where the popular vote comes in. This is where your vote in even a non-swing state could matter. Because if Biden won 10% of the popular vote, it's going to be a lot harder for Trump to play this game. Even like 8%. Like, the higher that margin is, the better. Because if he wins the Electoral College, but some of the states are really close, and Trump's calling for an investigation, but he won 10% of the popular vote, it's going to be a lot harder for Trump to deny the results of the election. And he's going to get a lot more international pressure. He's going to get a lot more direct action pressure. And we're a lot more likely to have the support of the military if it comes to the point of actually needing it, to where the military green lights just dragging him out of the White House. Excuse me. So, yes, I think your vote, even in a non-swing state, for Biden is a lot more likely to do anything positive than voting for a third party. Because third parties don't send a message to anyone. Nobody cares. If you can show me evidence of them caring, I'll check it out, but I haven't seen any. The only evidence I've ever seen of the DNC caring is when they are primaried, because that's a direct threat to their power. So support Justice Democrats, support primarying Democrats. That's where the system's the most vulnerable. In the general, it's harm reduction. It's vote for the lesser evil. Vote for the guy who doesn't want to kill you. Okay? Again, I would love to have a discussion. If you don't want to have a $500 challenge blood sports debate, let's just talk about it. I can, if you ask me not to post it, like, we can do it not live, And you can decide whether you want it posted or not at the end of that. I just want to talk to people because this is important. We, in this democracy, poor as it is, do get to have a say in who's president. And there's only two choices right now. The other choices are in the primary, which is over. There's two choices. And one of them wants to kill you. So anyway, again, I'd love to talk to you. Thanks.